I see you.
So, do you hear me?
I hear you. Do you hear me?
Yep. Good.
Hey,
Good.
it's good to
So,
see you.
good to see you too. How was your meeting?
It was a faculty meeting.
Yeah, okay. Silly me. I've been away for a while, so you get enough distance from it, you don't feel the tension anymore.
Yeah, it's part group therapy, part, some governance, that this was the College of Education faculty assembly. So multiple departments all together, which we hardly ever get to do. So it is always good to see what's going on outside of your silo.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes. And can you see, I shared my screen for the piece that you gave me feedback on. So can you see that on your end?
I can. Yep.
Okay. All right. And how were your travels?
Well, I'm choosing my words carefully. It was an adventure,
Okay.
one that I don't need to repeat. Honestly, India is challenging. Oh
Really?
my God. And I mean, we were all sick from the food
Oh, man.
and, and the poverty. Oh, it just,
Yeah.
it gets you down after a while.
Yeah. I know
The
my
dirt,
brother did
the
a couple
poverty,
months there.
and the mass of humanity everywhere you go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we had some really very wonderful experiences, which I'm glad I've had,
Mm-hmm.
but they were very hard.
Yeah. A
Now,
lot to reflect on.
oh yeah, and I'm writing a blog, so that's making me think it through all over again. I have to tell you that the highlight was the Taj Mahal.
Yeah.
It is exquisite. I mean, there's just
Wow.
no other word for it. It's absolutely mind-blowingly exquisite.
Is it the scale? Like you can't get a sense of the scale until you see it? Or is it just the architecture of it?
Well, it's this beautiful marble building that a man built for love.
Mm-hmm.
He built it for his wife who died in childbirth. And I mean, I don't know of any other buildings that were built for love. And
Right.
it just emanates from it. I mean, this beautiful white, gorgeous building with all these inlaid semi-precious jewels in
Mm-hmm.
the building itself. And it's the strangest thing, but it sits with the river behind it. So there's nothing behind it. And
Mm-hmm.
then walls all around it. And there's a bylaw that nothing can be built for 500 meters outside the wall.
Oh, wow.
So it almost floats.
Wow.
Like it doesn't look like it's sitting on the earth.
Yeah.
And even though there were lots of people there, um, it was kind of like an individual spiritual experience.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
That
And
is really
I've
neat.
traveled a lot, so I've seen a lot of beautiful buildings. I think this is the most beautiful building I've ever seen.
Well, I will have to get to see it. My brother and sister both went maybe a decade ago to go see it, and they took pictures and sent them back to me. I was in my doctoral program and I could not imagine getting away. And so really feel like, at least in my family, I need to go see it so that we can share that experience.
Well, you don't need to be there for 7 weeks as we were. Although, the first 10 days we were at a wedding.
Right.
So that was really neat. And that was great.
Yeah.
We were all in a great big Airbnb apartment.
Oh, cool.
So we got to know the family, in a way that you wouldn't otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
So that was very neat. But in particular in the North, well, everywhere. I mean, it's just, the poverty is staggering. People living in hovels. I mean, there's no other word for it. It's just
Wow.
very basic. I'll tell you one thing I did learn, which I'm not happy to have learned, but I learned. We went to this tea plantation, and it was very nice. We stayed in the old homestead. Now, there was no heat, and it was cold there, so I wore my warm clothing all the time, including eating.
Mm-hmm.
But we did a tour of the tea plantation, and there's this great big poster billboard about fair trade. We are a fair trade company. We treat our employees with dignity and respect, and blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
And then beside it, there's a notice of kind of a collective agreement. The daily wage for a worker on the plantation, and you have to do 40 kilograms of tea leaves to get your day's wage.
Wow.
The day's wage is 159 rupees, which is $1
Oh my
and
goodness.
52 cents Canadian.
Wow.
Now
Wow.
tell me exactly where the fair trade comes in.
Right. And the dignity.
And
Yeah.
I mean, they most of them live either near the plantation or in a village very close by. They are all very basic dwellings. I mean, how much can you buy with $1.32?
Right. It makes you rethink the definition of fair trade when you see it in the
It's certainly
States or in Canada, absolutely, and what that means.
because I always used to get this warm, fuzzy feeling
Right.
when I'd buy some coffee or tea and it'd say fair trade on it. I said, oh, that's a good thing to buy. Well,
Right.
I don't think so anymore.
Might not be a universal definition.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a restriction on 40 minutes for this. Is that right?
Oh no, I have that. I bought the higher account, so we can talk. You can talk as long as you want.
Okay. All right. So I want to say, first of all, that this article is ready to submit.
Oh, yay. I'm glad you think so.
Yeah.
Thank
So any suggestions that I make are simply for the purpose of strengthening it. And what I would tell,
Absolutely.
Somebody submitting it to me for review.
Okay, perfect.
This is a very lovely piece of work. And these are the ways in which you could strengthen it if you choose to.
That's great. Well, I think I owe a lot of credit to you in here. And I was...
No, let's get this straight. This is your work.
I know, but I was just talking to, and I know you've been talking to Jean as well. Jean has reached out. And I was just talking to Jean this morning because I sent her a draft. I had sent it to a number of people to kind of read and give me feedback. And I said to her this morning, I said, I don't know if Jackie knew that she was going to tell me to do all these things along the way, but it felt like she had the next step for me planned and, was just waiting for me to get somewhere so that I could take the next step. Because had she told me everything up front, I might have been overwhelmed about the process, but it was a very nice scaffolding. And I said, it really felt like the writing really was a journey of self-discovery instead of a piece I was working on, which I wish all of my writing was shaped that way. And so I did want to say thank you because it really was selfless for you to kind of reach out and recognize that you saw something.
It's really an exercise, a joyful exercise for me.
Yeah.
I get a lot of pleasure out of it. So you don't need to feel obligated to me in any way, shape, or form. I really have enjoyed this.
Well, I really have enjoyed it too. And I will, as I tell my students that I mentor, continue to pay it forward to others who might be in the same spot as me.
Perfect.
So, so I really enjoyed it. And now have feel excited to share it, where I think I was hesitant in the beginning to share certain parts, and now I feel a little bit kind of ripped open and then validated and thought, okay, everybody, here's my heart. I'm going to put it out there, and hope you get something out of it. So I am excited. I'm glad that you think that it is ready for submission, because I look forward to that process too.
One of the things in here that you might want to think about is you talk about your values.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the one significant one that you come back to all the time is the one I noted in the abstract. But there are others in here that are implicit, but they're not explicit,
Mm-hmm.
which I believe your reader's looking for.
Okay.
So that's one thing. And you do talk about that particular value, that the importance of that relationship with the student. And you talk about others implicitly, but you don't talk about them explicitly, which is an expectation in a living educational theory.
Mm-hmm.
So one of your titles there is something about my values, or it's farther down in it.
Yeah.
But you're assuming that the reader knows what values you're referring to.
Yes.
Which, I mean, So, I mean, let's give it to them up front and clearly.
Right.
Just not say, well, you know what I'm talking about because I talked about it, right? And yet.
Yes. And one of the things that, and I think because I wrote this while I was kind of in that self-discovery, is that I don't know that I had quite gotten a handle on them until actually further on in my writing. So I think that's good feedback, because I need to go back in and name them more explicitly now that I have a better handle on it.
That's correct.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing you want is your reader to be with you as you're falling through the logic of your argument.
Absolutely.
And if they're guessing at what you mean, then that's not making it readerly, as
Mm-hmm.
the language we use, right? So I'd go back, because I think it's kind of evolved, and the document's kind of evolved, and then you need to kind of go back and kind of read that it holds together in that form of argument.
Absolutely.
I know argument doesn't sound very much like living theory, but I mean, essentially all research is an argument that you're posing with supporting documentation to say, this is how I know this.
And I appreciate you editing the use of living theory and living educational theory, because that really is still, I'm on a learning curve with the terminology. So that's really helpful.
Well, I mean, you've come light years in a very short time. I mean, you really grasped this from the inside out, which a lot of researchers can't do. I mean, especially, we mostly all came through that, generic scientific method.
Right.
If then. And I mean, if the support for if then is statistical data, which you have some of in here.
Yeah.
So it's not purely a qualitative research. It's got mixed methods in it.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to. You see this at the video?
Yes.
It really stands out if you just put a still from the video in there.
Yeah, I'll figure out how to play with that. I mean, are people just taking a screenshot and putting it in there and then hyperlinking it? Okay, yeah. That's what I thought. So I can play it. And I agree. When I read, I feel like I went back to the first issue and read a number, of articles through and saw, through the evolution of the journal. And that does make a difference with the still. I agree. So I can absolutely do that. And then can you tell me what you were thinking about talking about ethical issues around permissions? do you mean about permissions for those that I'm speaking to, or, you know,
Yeah.
what were you thinking about that?
Well, I mean, you can do videos of your own practice anytime you like, but as soon as someone else is in the video, and you publish it, then you need their permission to do so. And they should actually see the clip and what
Yes.
to say about it. And then they
Yes.
should you should put it in an email and then get them to email back to you. I give you permission to use this video for this purpose. And I mean, it just takes a one-liner in there to say, this is the process I use to get permission.
Perfect. And I have that. Yes, I did that. So a one-liner about my process, just making the reader aware that I asked for permission and was granted. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, in that process, were there any issues?
Right. There weren't, but, you know, I was aware a little bit of the power structure when I asked for permission, because these all are either students or advisees of mine. And so I tried to make it clear that they were under no obligation whatsoever.
But it's still not a bad idea to articulate that.
Absolutely.
It just knows that you have a full understanding of the issues around power and
yeah.
And I mean, we don't kid ourselves that we can completely eliminate that. So, you know, and all of us in the business, this particular methodology know that. But
yeah.
We do whatever we can to at least address them and be as honest and truthful about as we can. And I mean, Linda Smith, I don't know if you know her work or not. Her middle name is Tuwali or Tuhuli or something like that. She's South African, and she's written quite a bit on ethical issues. And I mean, her position is that the important thing when we're doing insider research is to always to keep the relationships in that family and that community front and center, so that we don't err maybe unconsciously and maybe surprise somebody by something we've written in public, or have not at least very carefully addressed it with them.
Yeah. I will absolutely look her up as well. She probably could play a role in some of my coursework too with my students.
Yeah, she's very good. If you need the reference, I can send you that reference.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's also Jane Zenny. Do you know her?
I don't.
Give you her.
Well, how do you spell Zenny?
Zeni. She might.
I wonder if I.
Was from University of Chicago. I have her book here somewhere. I gave away a lot of my books when I was not teaching anymore, but I kept the ones I really love. So.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, wonderful. I appreciate that. Okay, so I'm looking just through some of the other pieces of feedback here. Sense of the why. Could why come from your background? Yeah, I could address that a little bit there.
I mean, you're talking about maybe next steps, and if if you want to say, if you didn't want to get into it at this point, you could say, I think one of my next steps is to add my context, to see how that's influenced my values and my living my values. So that, that, if you didn't want to get into it here, but for most of us, that's the place you have to go at some point. I was telling Jean, she lost her mom in October.
Yeah.
She talked a little bit about it, and I said, and one of the things I had to work through was my relationship with my mother, and I always was trying to please her, because I wanted her to love me, and she didn't love me, and I never could do enough or kind of figure out a way for that to happen. And my brother, when we were in India, I don't know how we got onto this, but anyway, he said, "Don't you know that our mother's a sociopath?" And I say, "What?" He says, "She can't. She doesn't have the empathy or the emotion to give you what you think you need. When are you going to get your head around that?" Really? So I've spent a lot of my life trying to figure out why this is such a strange relationship, and he kind of takes it,
Wow.
and nails it on the table. I think,
Right. It is interesting. I think once like the evolution of trying to see your own parents as flawed individuals and seeing that, their own stories limit what they can give to their children and the next generation, and how then that is our burden to figure out with. I remember talking to my mother at one point, and we always used to say that there's three of us, and there was a stint of time where my mother was in heavy therapy. And so that was kind of after my brother had kind of gone through his formative years and before I had gone through mine. So we kind of joke in the family that we got two different versions, a therapized mother and a non-therapized mother. And so we kind of compare the stories. But I remember talking to my mother at one point, many years later, and she said, you can go through your whole life and, blaming your parents, for something, and she said, but at some point, she said she learned in her own therapy that, you have your cards and how you play them is up to you, and what you do with that moving forward. And that kind of has stuck with me because I realized I was never going to get exactly what I needed, in certain aspects of my life from my parents, but they were doing what they were capable of, but that it was up to me to go out and, I don't know, fill those holes or find a way to use that for good. But it was a while before I think I could see, especially my father, as flawed and doing the best that he can, and seeing him as limited helped me not yearn for the things I wasn't going to get, if that makes any sense.
well, and for me, I mean, because I had that kind of lack of emotion and love from my parents, then I went the other extreme with my kids. I mean, I still am very emotional with them and always hug them and tell them I love them. And I mean, my son's 6'4" and 44 years old. So, I mean, but he expects that from me, and that's what I want him to expect from me.
Right.
But it's part of, and so that translates into why relationships are so important to me. That I work so hard at being real with people and giving everything I can to help them do what they want to do, not what I want to do, but what they want to do. And whatever I can do to help others, that's what I feel my contribution to improving the world is. And I mean, such a little tiny percentage of the big picture. I mean, but that's why it's important to me. So it's when you kind of dig into your background and, why are you the way you are? And that gives you a starting point for how can I be a better me than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, one of my values is loving kindness. So then I ask myself, well, was I lovingly kind with my mother?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I tried to be. I just didn't get anything back. So then you kind of, when it falls on stony ground, you doesn't mean you don't keep trying, but it kind of takes some of your motivation away.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought because, I think about some of my own values of connection, and I think that there is an idea that if I do these things and try to connect, that it will also be good for that person, right? That they will want to connect back. But that isn't always the case because they are living their own life. So.
And they don't always trust it. I mean, it takes time to get that
Mm-hmm,
kind of trust. I mean, that one student that we talked to you about, you know, at first she didn't trust her own work and she never felt she was good enough. And then when you made that personal connection with her, then it liberated her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes me think about, you know, what happens to your own living theory when people don't respond the way that, you know, that how that impacts your own growth, when people don't respond the way that you anticipate that they will respond if you do certain things. Just another aspect of challenges and growth, I guess, that me being more aware will have to deal with in the upcoming, you know, evolution of this. Because one thing that you, I mean, I guess I anticipated, but I was still kind of shocked at the amount of brain space, really. I mean, and reflection that was occurring during the whole writing process of this and the exploration of it. I mean, and it's not just in practice.
Where did you write that?
This I've been writing steadily since August.
No, what you just said.
Oh.
How amazed you were by how this process, this writing process, has affected your thinking and the evolution of your thinking. You see, now we're into
I'm looking at the back.
Levels of writing. So now you're reflecting on the meaning making that came through the process of the thinking and researching.
Yeah.
So you're recording this, right?
Yes. Recording it and taking notes. Yeah.
So, I mean, what you just said, you need to go back through that script and take that right out of that, because that is now another voice.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we get your voice, but we aren't getting the other voices as often as maybe you might think you need to. So that's another voice because it's been articulated to me and I've heard it and I've reflected it back to you. You understand what I'm saying?
I do understand. Yes.
So this is now taking in a number of different levels through this dialogue between the two of us, which is important to the whole process of the living theory methodology.
Yeah, I think that reflecting on the way that the role of self-reflection, that, you know, there's a, like you said, there's levels of reflection, right? So writing this is reflecting on my practice and my story and who I am and my values, but the actual act of writing it impacted how I behave currently in my context. I could not turn it off. So in every department meeting, in every conversation with a peer, there was it was an ongoing on-the-spot reflection of, am I true to my values in this, even though it was outside of what we would be quote unquote practice, right? I mean, it became all encompassing, and it, similar to what I talked about, is, you know, that core kind of came to the surface and kind of spread out. There was no siloed portion of my life where this didn't, you know, have an impact. And so I think it is much more than just how do I improve my practice. You know, it really is, how do I be the best version of myself, like you said earlier? How do I live this day to day? Instead of just, how do I get better at what I do?
Well, I mean, you could put this clip in and pull out 2 or 3 things out of it that will certainly provide more data that is
Yeah.
evidence to support your claim.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think there might be a good clip or two that adds that piece of the reflection. Yeah, thank you.
So you also talked about, you didn't see at this point that the nature of your influence on your institution or but you just said that you felt it was impacting your relationships in your meetings and with your colleagues and with the students. Well, if that is part of that social environment, your institution that you are influencing, the question is, do others hear or see that? And if so, can they comment on it? Because your voice is the first and most important voice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Second and third ones need to come from others. So the people you're working with, and I mean, you brought the students in, so that's great. Oh, well, I think about it, that first student, I don't think we saw her name anywhere, did we?
I think they're all in here. Afifa is the one who I just talked to one-on-one, and then Nicole, Linda, and Amanda were the trio.
Amanda, I don't think, is she the one in black?
She's the one sitting with me at the table.
Yeah, I don't think her name's in there anywhere.
Her name is on her quote.
Yes, but I don't think it's, you mean you put.
Right, it's not tagged in the video because she was sitting with me, correct?
Right.
Should I put her name up somewhere?
Well, I mean, I was just wondering, who's this when I was
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's because we were in the same place at the same time, correct?
Yeah.
So with the social context, and I think I have a class session on February 5th in this course that I'm teaching now. And for the first time, we're going to talk about living theory methodology. And they'll be on the website, and they'll be looking at some of the posters and, reading the seminal article by Jack. And, and I've asked another professor to do my teaching observation that night, so that there's an opportunity for, one of my peers to come in and hear that. And I'm interested to see where that conversation goes moving forward, because I think some of them will have, I think there will be an impact. I hope some people feel maybe a calling to do some of the work. I don't know. But well, that's coming up.
You never talk about that in here at all. You are actually bringing it into your institution and teaching it, and you don't mention it.
Yeah, you're right. I probably wrote this before I adjusted my syllabus. I'm sure that I finished this and then adjusted my syllabus and did not come back. So let me add that in. Okay, that's great.
So it's suggested there as a part of this new
but it's
against strength and the conviction. So it's there.
It's not explicit.
No.
Yeah. So that's good, because I think that will strengthen up this last piece, both of those things that we talked about, this last piece of about looking at the impact. Because those are two other pieces that I can talk about there too.
So one of the things we like to do with articles like this is we like to have a section at the end that says next steps, because it sends the message that this is not over. I haven't now I know my values, now I lived according to values, that's the end of that conversation. It's like, and you've said, I've heard you articulate it, that it kind of affects all that you're doing. So going forward, what would you focus your thinking on in terms of living theory, your living theory?
Right. I think there's a natural there's a next steps that occurs in my practice, right? So there's something that is the application of my living theory to my practice will continue to see me create a space where the connections I have with my students are first and foremost, right? Not second. So not, not content and then let me see if I can make a connection, but connection first and then content second. So I think there's a reshifting in kind of the pyramid. And that's in my practice, but I think also there's a next step in me as an advocate of the field, I guess. Nice. Because I do feel that I have been enriched by the process, and I want to similarly how you have kind of been a shepherd for me. I would like to also be that person for others, even though I'm certainly a novice in this game. I'm happy to learn alongside people. So,
and we all were. We all
right.
started, with a little bit of information and some support, and that's how we all started. And so
yeah,
that's how the community grows.
And community is the right word, I think, because I would like there to be a community here of that I think people I think are ready to look at themselves. I think we live in an era where people are kind of more openly looking inward. I think that people have been looking inward forever, but I think it is more of a dialogue about why you do things and how you do things and what things you struggle with. And I want to be able to create a safe place for the students who do that, because I've always said to the doctoral students that I work with that we need to be careful because your program could make you sick. There is, and I've seen it happen to students where you can make yourself sick through an intense program that doesn't offer you support in places where you might need it. And I think that the role that this plays is really about planting your feet firmly and knowing who you are so that you can be aware when you're not who you are and know that that is toxic for you and find a way to find a space, a safe place. So I would like to create a place where values are valid, and the conversation matters and it's not secondary.
Lovely.
Yeah.
You might want to read that article of mine in December 2013 on eJolts about cultural inquiry, because I think that's exactly what you're talking about.
Yep. Okay. So
if you want to take another stab at it and make a few amendments, the other thing that on the eJolts website, there is a rubric for reviewers. You might take the rubric and just see if you think it meets the requirements of the rubric.
Mm-hmm.
Then maybe we could have another conversation.
Absolutely. And as far as the review process, and I guess we can talk about this next time, but it looks like I select one and someone selects two, and then are you outside of those three, even though you've already reviewed? I mean,
I'm a reviewer and I'm one of the board members, so
right.
It has to be one reviewer from the board. Okay. So I could fit two roles in that, unless you'd like three new people to have a look at what you've written.
Well, did the reviewers talk?
No.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if there was a community discussion.
Well, you have to respond directly to the website. It gets put up on the website. You get appointed by Marie, who's the editor, to be a reviewer. She asks you, have you got somebody you'd like to review your work? And then we each do our own independent reviews and respond directly to the writer on the website. So
Yeah.
it's all open. We don't talk as reviewers.
Okay. No, I would love for you to serve in that role. I just wanted to make sure that like wasn't ethical, that there wasn't something that was kind of frowned upon. I mean, in that process, I'm still shifting my mind from double blind peer review. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, when you talk to Marie, you can say to her, Jackie has been consulted with me on my writing. I would like her to be a reviewer, but I'm fine if you think that that's
Okay.
Not the right thing to do.
That's good advice. That's good advice.
One of the things that's really good in this is when you get responses from people, that you take notes and you include it in the paper.
Yeah, I saw that in a couple of articles. I thought that was really neat. I liked reading about the review process, and I learned a lot, I think, as a potential author from that.
So when you this session you're doing where you're going to bring living theory into the session with your doctoral students,
Mm-hmm.
It might be worthwhile to ask one or two of them to respond to the session in writing for you.
Okay.
So tell them what you're trying to do.
Right, absolutely.
So say, in this session, my intentions are to do this and this and this. It would really help me, and you need to use the word help, because it does a number of things. A, it brings them as co-researchers, and B, it helps build the relationship with them, and C, it gives you valuable feedback on what you're doing, which is very hard to get.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't make them be brutally honest. Most times you can't get that from others. It's hard to get really tough feedback. But I mean, if you can give them some specific questions to answer, like, what is your understanding of living theory based on that lecture? Or what are your questions still about living theory that I might be able to address in a future session? Or how do you feel about speaking with your personal I in terms of research? The kind of questions that will get them to kind of think about, listen to what you're saying, think about how they might respond, and hopefully give you some really good critical feedback. I mean, critical friend is the word that I would use.
Right.
Ask them to be a critical friend. I can't get better unless I get people to give me some critical feedback. Because, I mean, even I don't care how good you are at examining yourself, you really need somebody else with another set of eyes to give you.
I think that's a great idea. And I think that they would be willing to do that. And I think that we have spent a lot of time on connection and relationship already. So that's a good foundation for them to be some critical friends of mine.
And I mean, it will deepen their learning.
Absolutely.
It's not just for you, it's for them too.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
And it will give you data for where you go next with them.
Yeah. And for what others need to learn. Yeah. It will give me a lot of good data. That's great. Well, I have some great things to work on.
I hope I haven't given you too much.
No, not at all. No, because, you reach a certain point in your writing and you think, okay, am I done? what's next. So I think you've given me some really good things to not only fine tune what's currently here, but also create that bridge, for where it goes next, instead of just saying, okay, here it is, I'm done. And I think that next steps section is going to be great. And I think probably where I include, some pieces of this conversation as you helped to kind of further my thinking about not only the actual impact within my institution, but what could come next in my own life. So yeah, I'm excited.
So 2 or 3 things before we go. One is, I want you to be clear that I give you permission to use this video in your writing and your research.
Thank you.
2 is, are you going to upload it to YouTube, and could I access it?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. I can upload it and send you the link.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm writing an article for eJolts for June as well.
Excellent.
So, and it's not, I don't have it yet. You know how it takes you a while to kind of figure out the focus?
Yeah.
And the third thing is Arna. Are you going to Arna?
Yes, I'm planning on going to Arna, and I'm going to drag my husband too.
Okay, well, I am too, and my husband's coming too. So
great.
We talked briefly about whether we wanted to put in a proposal for a workshop. Mm-hmm. Have you thought any more about that?
I have thought about it, and I do think that, I would love to put in a proposal, and I think, I've looked at the call as well and thought about our relationship and what we're trying to do here. And I think there's a lot of value in not only talking about, like a mentoring relationship in the field, but also mentorship as a form of empowerment and advocacy. Because really, by reaching out and mentoring someone in a field that is so truly personal, you are creating advocates, around the world for them to go and share the message of having a personal transformation, which I think is a key to changing the world, really. Without trying to get too large. Being able to change yourself first and then have that impact on your social environment and your context is, those small changes change the world, right? And that change has to start within yourself. And you have to know who you are before you can change. So I see it as looking at it as taking a spin on mentoring and looking at it as advocacy. I don't know. What do you think? Too crazy? Too much of a stretch?
No, because we are now at the stage with Living Theory of seeing it as a social movement.
Perfect.
So that's exactly what we're working on. So you've nailed it right on the head.
Wonderful.
I will send you those references to Linda Smith and Jane Zenny.
Yes.
I have one more thing,
yes.
And that is, I know that I'm working with Jean.
Yeah.
And we were going to use Skype, but I'm wondering if she doesn't use Skype, and I'm wondering if we might use Zoom as an alternative, because then you don't need a recording program. It does it.
Yeah.
So you just mark save on it when you're doing it?
Yes. So when you set it up, and the reason I purchased Zoom is because it also saves to the cloud. So it does not have to take up a huge amount of storage space. And I am still learning about the editing functions of Zoom. It's pretty easy to clip the video, start and stop, but I'm still learning about clipping portions of it out. But it's just the learning curve. I guess I could upload the whole thing somewhere else and edit from there too, from that file. But yeah, I think it's very easy to use because it doesn't really require anybody to have a username. You know, anybody can log in anywhere.
Yeah, so that's good.
Yeah.
One last thing, the proposal for me to work with you and Jean and somebody in Portland, is that?
Yeah, that Caitlin Gable school,
Yeah.
right? Is that, yeah. So,
And
okay.
Judy McBride.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw Judy's response to Jean or not, but
No.
the living theory and métissage are separate. Like I'm not sure what your thinking is about that, but I mean, métissage is a method of co-writing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Living theory really is individual writing.
Agreed.
And although we do occasionally get ones with we, I had I had two students that did a co-authored master's, which took a bit of convincing at the institution.
Yeah, I bet.
But how those two work together is still not completely clear in my mind.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Jean is running the ship for this collab experience. I think I'm in the role of like a facilitator here with me and some of the teachers that I work with as participants. But I think she had a transformative experience with Judy in some of the work that they did. So I think she felt like it could bring value. I don't know if she sees the connection between the two, but just that these are things that participants may have an experience with. Not
one issue, and I love the métissage. I really enjoy métissage, and I know Judy very well. I'm just kind of talking out loud about when you've got a group that you'll have for a short period of time to try to teach them living theory and métissage in that same time span. I've never done it before, so I don't know.
Did she ask you guys to do a session together?
Well, it's not clear. She's invited us both to be involved, but it's not clear. And Judy, in her response, we said, "I'm not sure the connection." So I'm just I'm trying to think out loud. What do I think the connection is?
Yeah, and I think I don't know the connection either. And I did not attend the métissage session in Vermont, so I didn't have that experience, and I haven't written through that method, so I can't really speak to that. The participants in the collab from here, and I think from Portland, will be similar to the folks that you and Jack Skyped into your session. They will be teachers who are doing work in their schools, in their classrooms, trying to make a difference, understanding what it means to be a teacher researcher. So I think that and they've all already completed some action research. They're not novice researchers. They are, a step or two beyond. Some are doctoral students using action research as their dissertation. So I think the next, a natural evolution for them would be to become familiar with the living theory work. I see that clearly. I don't know, I'm not sure how Jean sees the connection with the métissage. So,
next time I'm talking to her, I'll broach that. she's already done the invite, so I'm trying to in my head, make the connection.
And you know what she has? She's kind of developed almost like two pieces to this collab experience. There are these first 3 sessions, which will be a session a month, that I think are kind of more about action research and the process and what it means to be a researcher and that. And then she's got these second 3 that I think might be a better place for the Métissage in a second piece, where I think her goal is to work through maybe setting some intentions and doing some more work and sharing your work. And so maybe, I don't know, maybe I see the living theory coming early on in this collab experience. And then maybe as people start to write and do that, maybe the Métissage fits in there with the writing, like further on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's.
I don't know.
I'll think about
yeah,
that.
I'm not sure how.
I think it'd be overload to give them both at the beginning.
I agree with you. I think you could almost look at the Métissage as a culminating piece. After they've been through the entire collab experience and they want to discuss their reflections, maybe that's the last piece.
That's a good idea. That's
a
good idea. Okay, well, thank you for helping me kind of think this through.
Yeah. And you're talking to Jean today too? She's getting a lot of us. And when did
your comment about my
go ahead,
time,
sorry.
Please don't worry about that.
Okay, good.
I love doing this.
You'll what?
I love doing this.
I know. I appreciate that. I do feel the same way. You know, when I work with some of my students, it is an energizing experience. Yes. Okay. So I am going to do some more writing on this. And you said you wanted to chat one more time before I uploaded it?
Really, it's up to you.
Let's see. You said that they are due by January. Is that a submission deadline?
No, this is a June issue.
Oh, okay.
You've got time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I would love to.
Start it. Look at this. I haven't even started.
I know. Yes, well, you're on the board, Jackie.
No. Deadlines are deadlines. No, we don't play that game.
Oh, you're already in.
That's not true. If I don't make the deadline, I don't get in either.
That's true. They have to have something to print.
Deadline. The deadline will be sometime in March.
Okay. Then yeah, let me do some writing and then and send it back to you one more time. You know, probably in the next 2 weeks or so. And then we can chat again and then see if we're ready to kind of send it out to the wider universe.
Okay.
But yeah, and I'll send you a link to this video as well.
Okay.
And as an afterthought too, I think Arna is due in March or April as well, right?
April.
Okay.
So we got time on that too.
But yes, I would love to do a piece about mentorship as advocacy or something like that.
Well, and for me, it's kind of the work that Jack and I did last year at Arna. It has kind of a continuum, because one of your students said something about spray and pray or something, and
yeah.
Often that's how you feel workshops are. When that's kind of that, and that's over. But when people pick up on the concepts and run with it, that's very exciting.
Yeah. And that's a way to look at professional development. I mean, to come and to present at a conference and to come and talk about a topic that you hope takes root. I think you have to also have that understanding that, once you've put it out there that, yeah, there might be some kind of responsibility to pick it up if you are trying to advocate for the spread of a message, right, as a social movement. That has to be part of that, which you did, which was not only humbling but also shocking.
Huh.
I mean, I've never had anybody, contact me and say, I heard you, I see you, and what do you want to do? How can I help? I mean, it's never happened. So
well, that's very encouraging for me too. So
yeah.
We're very lucky.
Yeah, I feel lucky.
I feel lucky too.
Okay, so I will send some stuff to you, and I appreciate your time. And I don't know, is today your birthday? Is this weekend your birthday?
Sunday, yeah.
Sunday. Well, I hope you enjoy it with the kids and the grandkids. I'm sure they'll enjoy their time with you.
Well, I haven't seen them for a while, so I'm very excited.
Yeah, that is exciting. I'm sure there'll be lots of hugs and love.
Yeah.
All right, Jackie, you have a great weekend.
You too.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.